Libra, stop for a moment. If your chest has been tight lately, if you've been lying awake at night, doing the math in your head, wondering how you're going to hold everything together, this message is for you. You didn't click this by accident. You've already prayed, quietly, without telling anyone how heavy it's been. And now, this new moon is responding. Not with noise, not with promises, but with movement behind the scenes. Something financial is shifting. Support is stepping in. And what you've been afraid of losing is being protected. Take a breath. Stay with me. Because what's unfolding next for you, Libra, is bigger than this moment, and it's already in motion. All right, stay with me, Libra. I want you to imagine this moment as if it's just you and me. No noise, no rush, just a quiet space where you can finally exhale. You've been holding so much inside, not the dramatic kind of pain that people notice, but the silent kind, the kind that lives behind your eyes, the kind you carry while still showing up for everyone else. You didn't complain. You didn't ask for pity. You simply adjusted. You recalculated. You told yourself, I'll figure it out. I always do. And that's exactly why this moment matters. Because when you stop speaking your worries out loud, when you chose dignity over panic, something shifted in the unseen. This new moon isn't here to test you. It's here to respond to you. You may have felt the tension building lately, a pressure in your chest, a subtle fear around stability, around home, around whether the ground beneath you would hold. You tried to stay balanced, because that's who you are. A Libra doesn't fall apart easily. You weigh things. You stay composed. Even when your heart is quietly asking, how much longer? What I need you to hear right now is this. Nothing you've done has gone unnoticed. Every late night where you ran numbers in your head, every moment you chose restraint instead of reacting, every time you trusted silence instead of spiraling, that wasn't weakness, that was alignment. This is why the answer doesn't arrive loudly for you. It arrives subtly, through timing, through the right door opening, through the right person stepping in, through support that shows up before the damage is done. You might not see it yet, but something is already moving on your behalf. Think of it like this. Before a room fills with light, the switch is flipped in the dark. That's where you are right now. There is protection around what matters most to you. Your sense of safety, your foundation, your home. Not just the walls, but the feeling of having a place where your nervous system can finally rest. And no, this doesn't mean everything suddenly becomes perfect, but it does mean the free fall stops here. This moment is asking you to do one thing, not to force, not to control, but to stay present, to notice the signs, the delays that are actually safeguards, the conversations that arrive unexpectedly, the help that feels almost too quiet to be real. This is where Libra learns a different kind of balance. Not the balance of holding everything together, but the balance of allowing support in. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You've already carried enough. And as this new moon continues to unfold, what once felt heavy begins to reorganize itself. Not all at once, but piece by piece, in a way that restores your trust in life again. So don't rush ahead mentally. Stay right here with me. Because what comes next isn't about surviving. It's about stabilizing, grounding, and realizing that this chapter was never meant to end in loss. It was meant to turn quietly. Stay with me, Libra. Right now, it may feel like the air itself is heavier, like something unseen is pressing against your chest. Not enough to break you, just enough to make you aware. That is the new moon at work. It does not arrive gently for you. It arrives honestly. It stirs what you have been keeping balanced for too long, the frustration you never named, the emotions you carefully folded away. The quiet pressure of responsibility that has followed you home every night. You have been holding tension with grace, but even grace gets tired. This lunar moment is not here to punish you. It is here to reveal what has been stretched too far and what can no longer be carried in silence. You might notice your patience thinning, your tolerance shifting, little things feeling louder than they should. That does not mean you are losing control. It means the truth is asking to breathe. For Libra, imbalance is felt deeply, not just mentally, but in the body, in the nervous system, in the way your heart tries to keep the peace while quietly absorbing the cost. This is where the danger lives, not in the pressure itself, but in reacting from it. The new moon invites intensity, but it also tests restraint. It asks you to pause before speaking, to soften your jaw, to notice when your body wants to fight instead of flow. Because what feels like a breaking point is actually a turning point. This tension is the final compression before movement, like the moment just before a locked door opens, like the silence right before a long-awaited answer arrives. You do not need to push. You do not need to confront everything at once. You do not need to prove how strong you are. You only need to stay aligned. Alignment does not mean pretending everything is fine. It means choosing awareness over reaction. It means letting frustration pass through you without letting it define you. There is wisdom in this moment, the kind that teaches you where your boundaries truly are, where your energy has been leaking, where your sense of responsibility has quietly turned into self-sacrifice. You have been trying to keep everything steady: family, finances, home, and in doing so, you placed yourself last without even realizing it. This new moon sees that. It does not demand collapse. It offers recalibration. When you feel the urge to react, breathe instead. When your thoughts race, ground them. When fear whispers about stability, remember that movement is already underway. This pressure is not random. It is precise. It is shaping you for what comes next. And what comes next does not arrive through conflict. It arrives through timing, through subtle shifts, through support that enters quietly without drama. You are not meant to fight this moment. You are meant to listen to it, because beneath the tension, there is a signal. And beneath the pressure, there is an opening. So stay present, stay soft, stay aware. What unfolds from here is not about enduring. It is about being guided into something steadier. And if you listen closely now, you can already feel where the weight begins to lift. Stay right here, Libra. There is something important I need you to feel before you understand it. In the middle of all this pressure, when your thoughts keep circling the same fears, there's a quiet presence around you. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, like a hand resting on your back when no one else is looking. You are not carrying this moment alone, even if it feels that way at night. Even if your mind keeps going to the same place, the house, the bills, the stability you have worked so hard to protect. I know you have been calculating every possible outcome, trying to stay calm while wondering how close the edge really is, wondering what happens if one more thing goes wrong. But this is where the story softens, because there is protection around you right now. Not the kind that removes all difficulty, the kind that steps in quietly before real damage happens. You are being held in place. You might feel suspended, like life has pressed pause without explaining why. But that pause is not abandonment. It is containment. Think of it like this. When something fragile is being moved, it is wrapped carefully, not rushed, not shaken, protected until it reaches safer ground. That is what is happening to you. Even if the fear is loud, the support is louder in ways you cannot hear yet. Behind closed doors, behind conversations you have not had, behind timing that feels slow but precise. You have not missed your moment, and you have not failed. This period is not a punishment for something you did wrong. It is a bridge, and bridges are held up by things you do not see beneath your feet. Your worry about home, about stability, about whether everything you built can hold, is understood. Completely. And it is being addressed in ways that do not require you to fall apart first. You are allowed to breathe here. You do not need to collapse to be cared for. You do not need to beg to be supported. You do not need to prove how much this hurts. Care is already present. Sometimes protection looks like a delay. Sometimes it looks like being kept right where you are. Sometimes it looks like help arriving just before you would have broken. This is one of those times, and I want you to notice something subtle. Your intuition has been quieter lately, not gone, just resting. That is because you are being guided, not asked to lead right now. You are being asked to trust that what matters most to you is not slipping through your fingers. It is being steadied. Your job is not to solve everything tonight. Your job is not to predict the future perfectly. Your job is simply to stay open enough to receive what is already on its way. This is not blind faith. This is earned faith. You have done your part. You showed restraint. You chose dignity. You stayed upright when it would have been easier to panic. Now something else moves for you. And as this protection continues to hold, something begins to shift underneath it. Slowly, quietly, with intention. You may not see it yet, but soon the reason for this pause will start to make sense. Because the next thing that enters your life does not come to test your strength. It comes to stabilize it. And that is where the story continues. Stay with me, Libra. I want you to picture this moment like standing in a quiet hallway just before a door opens. Nothing looks different yet. The light has not spilled out, but something on the other side is already moving. This is where you are right now. You may feel confused because nothing has arrived in your hands yet. No notification, no confirmation, no clear sign you can point to and say, this is it. And still, something is shifting. Money does not always enter loudly. Sometimes it arrives the way dawn does, slow, almost unnoticeable, until suddenly the darkness is no longer complete. What you need to understand is this: the support meant for you is already being arranged, processed, redirected, aligned. You are not late, you are not forgotten, and you are not asking for too much. There is a reason this movement is happening quietly, because it is meant to stabilize, not excite, to protect, not tempt. This is not about extra. This is about enough. Enough to keep the lights on. Enough to hold the roof steady. Enough to let your body relax instead of bracing for impact. You have been living in calculation mode for too long, measuring every dollar, weighing every decision, wondering which sacrifice will hurt the least. And that constant vigilance has taken a toll, not just financially, but emotionally. That is why this help does not arrive as a reward. It arrives as a response, because you asked with sincerity. You asked without drama. You asked from a place of responsibility, not entitlement. And that matters. There is a hand stepping in where you can no longer stretch yourself, a source you did not expect, a timing that feels almost deliberate in its precision. It may come through a person, a decision, a message, a system finally approving what was delayed. However it arrives, it does so with purpose. This is about your home, not just as a structure, but as a sanctuary. the place where you set your bags down, where your nervous system knows how to rest, where you remind yourself that you are safe enough to breathe. That is what is being protected. And no, this does not mean everything suddenly becomes easy, but it does mean the threat of collapse eases, the pressure releases, the spiral slows. You are being given room to regain balance, the kind of balance that does not come from juggling, but from having something solid beneath you again. I know part of you is still waiting for proof. That is natural. You have learned not to trust too quickly. But this moment is asking for a softer kind of attention. Not vigilance. Awareness. Watch what shifts in the coming days. Notice what resolves without you forcing it. Pay attention to what arrives when you stop holding your breath. Because this movement is not random. It is timed to meet you exactly where you are. And as this financial current continues to flow toward you, something else begins to happen inside. Your shoulders drop. Your thoughts slow. Your sense of ground returns. This is the beginning of steadiness. Not abundance for show, but security with intention. And once that foundation is reinforced, the story naturally starts to unfold in a new direction. One where survival is no longer the main focus, and something deeper is finally allowed to take shape. Stay close, Libra. There is a quiet truth I want to speak into you right now. Not loudly, not dramatically, just honestly. You did pray, even if you stopped using words. You prayed in the way you kept going when you were tired, in the way you held yourself together in public and unraveled only in private, in the way you chose restraint instead of bitterness, in the way you handed the situation over and said, "I cannot carry this alone anymore." That was the prayer. And then you did something even harder. You let go. You stopped asking every day. You stopped explaining. You stopped defending how heavy it was. You surrendered into silence. That is not giving up. That is trust. Real faith does not always look like hope. Sometimes it looks like exhaustion. Sometimes it looks like staying upright with nothing left to offer but honesty. And this is where I need you to hear me clearly. Your silence was not ignored. It was received. There is a difference between asking loudly and being heard deeply. You were heard deeply. What you are waiting for is not a yes or no. It is a timing. Because when something is approved at a higher level, it does not rush. It aligns. You might feel confused by that, wondering why nothing has shown up yet, wondering if you misunderstood the signs, wondering if you waited too long or asked for the wrong thing. You did not. Some answers arrive quietly because they are being prepared with care. They are not thrown at you. They are delivered in a way that protects your dignity. You are not being tested anymore. You are being positioned. And I know part of you feels suspended, like life pressed pause without explanation, like you did your part, and now you are just waiting in the dark. But there is movement here, not visible yet, not obvious, but precise. Imagine a letter being written long before it reaches your hands. Stamped, approved, routed. Each step invisible to you, yet necessary. That is what this moment feels like. You do not need to chase the answer. You do not need to convince the universe of your worth. You already did that through endurance. What is coming does not require you to suffer more to earn it. It requires you to stay open enough to receive it when it arrives. And this is where I want you to soften. Not into weakness, into acceptance. Because the hardest part for you has never been effort. It has been allowing support without guilt. You have been conditioned to believe that if you are not actively struggling, something will fall apart. That peace must be temporary. That stability has to be defended. This moment is teaching you otherwise. You are allowed to rest in the knowing that your prayer landed. You are allowed to stop replaying the worst-case scenarios. You are allowed to trust that what you asked for is being handled with intention. And as this truth settles in, something shifts inside you. Your breath deepens. Your shoulders ease. Your thoughts loosen their grip. This is not the end of the waiting, but it is the end of the doubt. Because once you know you were heard, you stop questioning the silence. And from that place of quiet certainty, the next layer of the story begins to reveal itself. Not all at once, but gently, in a way that feels like relief finding its way back to you. Stay with me a little longer, Libra, because now we are standing inside time itself, not rushing it, not pushing it, just feeling its rhythm. I know waiting has been the hardest part for you, not because you are impatient, but because you have already waited so long in silence. You are not asking how anymore. You are asking when. And here is where the energy gently answers. This is closer than it feels. Not months. Not some distant season you have to survive your way into. This is measured in days. In a short stretch of time where things are finalizing, aligning, clicking into place. You might sense it already. A subtle shift in the air. A feeling that something is wrapping up. That the story you have been stuck inside is reaching its last page. That is not imagination. That is timing speaking. There is a reason everything slowed down right before this. Because the final steps require precision, not pressure. Think of it like this. When something important is being transferred, it does not move quickly. It moves carefully, checked twice, handled with intention. That is what is happening now. You may notice your thoughts wanting to race ahead, wanting reassurance, wanting proof before it arrives. That urge is understandable. But this is where Spirit asks something different of you. Not action, not effort, but steadiness. Do not go back to questioning what you already handed over. Do not reopen worries that have already been addressed behind the scenes. Do not let impatience pull you back into fear. Because impatience is not urgency. It is anxiety wearing a mask. And you have already done the anxious part. This moment is about trust in the process that is nearly complete. There is a quiet message here just for you. What is coming does not require you to brace yourself. It requires you to stay receptive. If you rush emotionally, you miss the timing. If you complain internally, you block the calm you need to receive clearly. So slow your breath. Soften your jaw. Release the need to know everything right now. What is being finalized will reveal itself at the exact moment it can actually help you. Not too early, not too late. And yes, there is lunar energy involved. Cycles do matter for you. You feel them deeply. As this cycle moves toward its peak, clarity increases. Decisions solidify. Support steps out of the unseen and into form. You will not have to chase it. You will recognize it by the relief it brings. The moment it arrives, your body will know. Your shoulders will drop without you realizing it. Your mind will stop spinning for a second. That is how you will know the waiting is over. Until then, your job is simple. Not easy, but simple. Stay grounded. Stay neutral. Stay out of reaction. This is not the time to second-guess your path. It is the time to stay aligned with it, because the finish line is already in sight, even if your eyes cannot see it yet. And as these final moments settle into place, something prepares to shift again. Not in time this time, but in meaning, because once the when is answered, the why begins to make sense. And that is where the story naturally carries us next. Stay with me, Libra. This part of the story gets quieter, not softer, quieter. Because this is where balance begins to correct itself. You may have felt it already. A subtle distance growing between you and certain memories, certain people, certain wounds that used to pull at your chest when you thought about them. That is not indifference. That is completion. The new moon is not only opening doors for you, it is closing others. Gently, decisively. There were people who walked away when things got heavy. People who left you to carry responsibility alone. People who watched you struggle and chose comfort over conscience. You did not chase them. You did not beg them to see your worth. You absorbed the loss quietly and kept going. That mattered more than you know, because karma does not rush. It observes. It waits. And then it restores balance where imbalance was created. What you are witnessing now is not punishment. It is consequence. While you were learning how to survive without support, they were learning how much they relied on your presence. While you were finding strength in solitude, they were slowly stepping into lack. Not just financial, emotional, energetic, moral. You may hear from them. Apologies may arrive late. Explanations may finally surface. Stories about regret, about realization, about how hard things have become. And I want you to hear this clearly. You do not need to engage, not because you are cold, but because you are no longer bound. Karma does not require your participation to do its work. It simply requires you to step out of the way. This is one of the hardest lessons for Libra. Letting justice happen without trying to make it fair for everyone. You spent so much of your life balancing other people's scales, absorbing discomfort so no one else had to feel it, making excuses for behavior that hurt you. That era is ending, not with anger, with clarity. You are not celebrating their struggle. You are simply no longer carrying responsibility for it. And as this cycle closes, something shifts inside you. A release you did not know you were waiting for. A loosening in your chest. A sense that you no longer need to look over your shoulder. This is what it feels like when karma changes direction. Not dramatic, not loud, just final. What they face now is their path. What opens for you is yours. And you may notice the contrast. As they experience lack, you experience replenishment. As they search for stability, you are slowly regaining it. As they look backward, you are being guided forward. That is not coincidence. That is balance restored. You are no longer defined by what was taken from you. You are defined by what you endured and still chose not to become bitter over. That is power. And here's the quiet beauty of this moment. You do not need closure conversations. You do not need explanations. You do not need to be understood by those who failed you. You understand yourself now. And that understanding frees energy. Energy that was locked in survival. Energy that was tied to the past. As that energy returns to you, life begins to feel lighter. Possibility returns. Choice returns. This chapter is closing itself with dignity, without you forcing it, without you reopening old wounds. And as the weight of that cycle finally lifts, something else becomes possible. Not revenge. Not validation, but a future that is no longer built around what hurt you. And from that place of release, the story does not end. It widens. Because once the past loosens its grip, there is room for something steadier to take form. And that is where we naturally move next. Stay with me, Libra. This is where the ground feels different beneath your feet. Not because everything suddenly changed overnight, but because something essential held. You made it through the compression, through the nights where your thoughts circled the same fears, through the moments where you wondered if what you built would survive the weight placed on it. And it did. That matters more than you realize. When the foundation holds, the future can be redesigned. You are not standing in survival mode anymore. You are standing at the edge of a new orientation, one where your energy no longer goes toward bracing for loss, but toward choosing what deserves to grow. There is a quiet confidence returning to you now. Not loud, not rushed, just steady. You can feel it in the way you think again. Clearer, more strategic, less reactive. You are no longer asking, how do I get through this? You are asking, what do I build next? That shift is everything. What you endured sharpened your discernment. You see where your time was leaking, where your generosity was costing too much, where effort was being spent without return. And instead of becoming hardened, you became wiser. This is the Libra evolution. Balance through clarity. Grace through boundaries. Stability through intention. You are stepping into a way of working that respects your nervous system. A way of creating income and structure that does not require burnout as proof of worth. A way of living that understands strategy is not control, it is self-respect. Independence does not mean isolation for you. It means choice. The choice to say yes without fear. The choice to say no without guilt. The choice to build a life that supports you back. This new beginning is not flashy. It is durable. It shows up as consistency, as plans that make sense long term, as opportunities aligned with who you are now, not who you had to be to survive. And most importantly, it shows up as peace. The kind of peace that lets you sleep without calculating worst-case scenarios. The kind of peace that lets you imagine a future without holding your breath. You are not just moving forward, you are moving from within. That is why this chapter feels different. You did not bypass the lesson. You integrated it. You learned that stability is not something you chase. It is something you cultivate. Quietly, patiently, with trust in your own rhythm. As you continue, notice how life responds to this new posture. Doors that open without force. Support that feels mutual instead of draining. Momentum that builds without chaos. This is not about proving anything anymore. It is about alignment. And alignment brings a kind of abundance that does not announce itself. It simply lasts. So take a moment here. Let yourself acknowledge what you survived, what you protected, what you chose not to become. You earned this steadiness. And as this cycle completes, the story does not close. It deepens. Because now that the foundation is secure, something more meaningful wants to be built on top of it. Something that reflects your values, your intelligence, your heart. So keep listening. Not for warnings this time, but for invitations. The next chapter does not begin with urgency. It begins with intention, and that is where your path continues. All right, Libra. Before you go, let this moment land. If something inside you softened tonight, if your breath feels a little deeper than when you arrived, that's not coincidence. That's recognition. You didn't just listen to a message. You remembered who you are beneath the pressure, beneath the waiting, beneath everything you've been holding together in silence. This new moon didn't come to scare you. It came to steady you, to remind you that help can arrive quietly, that protection doesn't always announce itself, and that your life is not falling apart. It's reorganizing around your truth. So trust what you're feeling right now. Trust the calm. Trust the timing. Most of all, trust yourself. If this message spoke to you, let me know. Leave a comment. Share what you're releasing or what you're ready to receive. Your voice matters here. And when you like and subscribe, you're not just supporting the channel. You're staying connected to a space built for your healing. We're walking this journey together, Libra, and this chapter doesn't end here. Another message is already forming. Another layer is about to unfold. So stay close, stay open, and remember, balance always returns to those who choose to listen.